The bell above the door gave a lazy chime as Elena Ward stepped into Red Rock Tactical at 1427. The shop smelled like gun oil and floor polish. Rows of rifles lined the walls, cases of handguns under glass, and paper targets curled at the edges from dust and fluorescent light. She paused just past the threshold, letting the door swing shut behind her. Her jeans were faded at the knees, her sneakers scuffed and softened at the soles. The zipper of her navy windbreaker was stuck halfway, and her black hair fell limp over her shoulders. Not combed, not styled, just there. The chatter stopped. 3 guys near the AR rack tilted their heads and exchanged quick smirks. One of them, a blonde with a trucker hat turned backward, laughed under his breath. Another, wearing a tight polo and too much cologne, leaned toward the counter and said just loud enough, "She'd take a wrong turn out of Starbucks." The clerk looked up from his phone. He had a sparse beard and a smug grin that rose like a reflex. He nodded toward her without moving. "Range is in the back, unless you're here to browse pink camo holsters." Elena didn't answer. Her eyes swept the shop. No panic. No rush. She walked forward with a slow, even pace, her sneakers whispering against the tile. She stopped in front of the handgun case. Someone behind her snorted. A woman in yoga pants sipping an iced coffee whispered something about cosplay. Another customer muttered, "What's she planning to shoot?" Vibes. Elena's fingers rested on the edge of the glass. Her posture didn't invite conversation, but it didn't defy it either. She was there, unbothered, unreadable. A man in tactical boots and a hoodie stepped around her like she might trip if he brushed past too fast. The clerk leaned over the counter, peering down like she was a museum piece. "Anything specific you're looking for? Or just sightseeing?" She raised a hand and pointed at a Glock 19 Gen 5. Her voice was soft. "I'd like to see that one." He hesitated, then chuckled. "Sure, ma'am. Let's make sure it's not too heavy." He unlocked the case, pulled it out, and placed it on the counter like a toy he expected to be dropped. The guy in the trucker hat pulled out his phone, ready to record something he thought would be funny. Elena didn't pick up the pistol right away. Her left hand hovered over it for a moment, feeling the weight in the air more than the steel. Then she moved, smooth, deliberate. She picked up the Glock, checked the chamber, then field stripped it with clean motions, one-handed, without looking rushed. The metal parts clicked gently against the glass as she laid them out. Slide, barrel, recoil spring, frame. 4 seconds, maybe less. No drama, no flare. The clerk's grin faltered. The guy with the phone let it drop halfway to his side. The woman in yoga pants blinked and said nothing. A different customer coughed, then stopped midway like he didn't want to interrupt whatever this was. Elena stood still. She didn't look up. She wasn't smiling, wasn't smug, just calm, as if she'd just opened a book and turned to the right page. The silence stretched, a long pause that tasted like someone had made a mistake and wasn't ready to own it. No one reached for their phone now. No one cracked a joke. The guy in the tight polo stepped back, scratching his head. The clerk finally said, You know your way around one of these." Elena looked at the pieces again. Her eyes moved with intent, as if checking alignment. Then she said, "Flat, even. Just wanted to make sure it was clean." A man standing near the door, older, with a cap from the 82nd Airborne and hands like cracked leather, watched her without a word. His eyes narrowed, but not in judgment, more like memory. She put the slide and barrel back into place, reassembled the pistol without a sound, locked it, set it down. Her hands didn't shake. Her breathing never changed. She didn't glance at the others. She didn't look for approval. She just waited. And the shop, for the first time that afternoon, felt a little too quiet. Like they had all just stepped into a place they didn't recognize. A place where maybe they weren't in charge after all. The Glock 19 sat on the counter, the black polymer frame dulled by range dust and fingerprints. Elena stepped forward without a word, her gaze low but unwavering. Tyler raised an eyebrow, unsure what she planned to do, but didn't stop her. No one expected much. At best, maybe she'd pick it up awkwardly, fumble a bit, then ask something obvious. She didn't ask anything. Her right hand slid forward and lifted the pistol. She didn't test the weight or squint at the slide. She just turned it in her palm, checked the chamber, then locked it back. Her thumb and forefinger moved in perfect rhythm as she released the magazine with one hand. Used gravity and wrist angle to clear it clean. Her motions were fast, but not rushed. It was the kind of speed that comes from endless repetition. A few feet away, Brad laughed once, short and sharp. "Let's see her figure that out." No one responded. Without looking up, Elena racked the slide, aligned the takedown levers with a subtle tug, and disassembled the weapon in one fluid, one-handed motion. The slide separated clean. The barrel dropped out. The recoil spring came away with a slight metallic snap. 4 seconds, no wasted effort, no show. The entire shop fell silent. Tyler stared at the pieces on the counter like he'd missed a sleight of hand trick. A younger guy near the holsters slowly lowered his phone. Brad shifted his weight but didn't say a word this time. It was too late to recover the joke. The slide gleamed in Elena's hand as she set it gently beside the barrel and guide rod. She didn't look around, didn't wait for approval. She reached into her jacket pocket, pulled out a square of cloth, and began wiping the slide rails in small, precise strokes. An older man near the wall leaned forward. His face had that quiet stillness only seen in people who've known war up close. "You ever see something like that?" A man whispered beside him. He didn't answer right away. His eyes didn't leave Elena's hands. "Once, Fort Bragg. We had a guy from Delta do that during a demo, but not with one hand." Elena paused just long enough to slide the recoil spring back into place, fit the barrel, then reassemble the Glock with the same calm care she used to break it down. The pieces clicked into place like they wanted to be there. Her thumb checked the slide, the frame. Function check. Done. No one said a thing. She placed the pistol on the counter, muzzle pointed safe, and stepped back, still silent, still expressionless. The quiet wasn't just from awe. It was recognition, not of fame, or a name someone could Google, but of mastery, real, practiced, lived-in mastery, the kind that doesn't come from YouTube tutorials or a weekend course, the kind that gets built through years, through deployments, through repetition born of necessity. Brad turned to look at Tyler, like maybe the clerk would laugh again and break the tension, but Tyler didn't meet his eyes. Elena didn't smile. She didn't explain. She reached for her bag, slung it over one shoulder, and waited for whatever came next. She had said nothing, but now, no one could speak. And somehow, that said everything. Brad couldn't let it go. He'd watched Elena break down and reassemble the Glock like it was an extension of her hand, and something in him just couldn't sit with it. Maybe it was ego. Maybe it was the unease that came when your assumptions collapse too fast. Either way, he needed to reclaim the room. He walked over to the counter, picked up a Sig Sauer P226 from the rental case, and held it out like a challenge. 20 meters, 5 shots. Let's see if she could still impress when it actually mattered. She didn't flinch. She didn't even raise an eyebrow. Her hand reached for the Sig, steady and deliberate. She didn't ask which variant it was. She didn't check the weight. She just locked the slide back, did a quick chamber inspection, and nodded once like she already knew what to expect. It was the look of someone who'd trained with dozens of them before. Not someone trying to prove anything, just someone who'd done it enough to stop thinking about it. Brad led the way to the shooting bay, his steps a little louder than they needed to be. He wanted the others watching, wanted them to see him bring her back to earth. Elena stepped in after him. Her stance was clean, feet shoulder width, knees soft, body aligned with the target like a line had been drawn through her spine. She didn't bounce, didn't fidget, just breathed in once, slow, then let it out. Tyler adjusted the target slider to the 20-meter mark. The paper sheet stopped with a soft click. She didn't speak, just raised the SIG and aligned her sights. 2 hands, thumbs forward, trigger finger outside the guard. Her breathing didn't change. Neither did her posture. Time passed in seconds, not heartbeats. Then she fired. The first shot rang out sharp and crisp. Recoil was minimal. Her elbows barely moved. The second came a breath later, then 3 more. Each round had its own rhythm, not rushed, not delayed, just right. When the target reeled back in, the room leaned in without moving. 5 holes, but you couldn't call them 5 separate shots. They clustered so tightly that from a distance it looked like one ragged tear. The grouping was no bigger than a dime. Brad blinked hard. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. A guy near the vending machine muttered, "That's special ops tight." "That ain't weekend shooter tight," another one whispered. "You don't get that outside JSOC. Maybe not even in JSOC unless you're lucky." Elena lowered the SIG, cleared it, and set it gently on the bench. She didn't even glance at the target. It wasn't about results. It was about doing what she knew how to do. Brad stared at the holes in the paper, like he could will them to spread apart. Like maybe it was a trick of the light. It wasn't. She stepped out of the lane without a word. Her hands relaxed. No smirk. No pride. She moved like someone who had nothing left to prove. Not because she thought she was better, but because she had already walked that road. Long ago. And far more times than anyone here could imagine. The rest of the shop stayed quiet. Even the kid who usually played music from the back had let the playlist run out without restarting it. It felt wrong now. Brad didn't meet her eyes. He didn't say good shot. He just backed up and handed the SIG to Tyler like it had betrayed him. Tyler didn't say much either. He just gave a slight nod. Not to Brad, but to her. Because what Elena had shown wasn't just precision, it was discipline. Muscle memory carved from something real. Maybe combat. Maybe something harder. And in that silence, respect didn't come in applause. It came in the way nobody asked her to go again. No one dared suggest luck. She had spoken with movement, with control, with calm, and what she left behind was louder than any praise. 5 shots, 1 group, 1 woman, and an entire room that would never forget it. The counter was quiet except for the soft hum of the range fans and the faint creak of someone shifting their boots. Elena stood near the glass, the SIG P226 still resting on the bench behind her, cleared and safe. The Glock 19 Gen 5 lay disassembled in front of her, slide and barrel separated, its matte black frame reflecting the overhead lights. Tyler, the clerk with the patchy beard, finally spoke. "All right. Who are you?" "You military law enforcement. You got a permit." His voice wasn't aggressive, but there was something tight in it now, like he wasn't sure if he wanted the answer. Elena reached into the side pocket of her worn canvas backpack and pulled out an old laminated ID. It had a state seal and a photo so faded you could barely make out her face. She held it out without speaking. The card trembled slightly. Not from her hand, but from the slight draft under the vent overhead. "That's not a military ID," someone muttered from the holster aisle. She didn't even blink. A woman in yoga pants with oversized sunglasses perched on her head let out a dry laugh. That thing could be from a library or a gym. I mean, look at her. Another woman near the ammo shelf snorted. "Come on. No vet dresses like that. That windbreaker's older than my kid." She tilted her head, squinting. "Is this one of those viral prank setups?" Elena didn't lift her eyes. She picked up the Glock's slide and began wiping it down with a cleaning cloth from the counter. Her strokes were even, precise, not rushed. She moved like she'd done it 1,000 times and would do it 1,000 more. One of the younger guys near the back folded his arms and leaned to a friend. "Staged. Right. You saw the grouping. Yeah. But maybe it was already shot before she walked in." Near the exit, an older man with a shaved head and a limp shifted his weight. He wore a field jacket zipped halfway and had the hard stare of someone who remembered things he didn't talk about. Al-Udaid. Back in '09 or '10 maybe, he said, mostly to himself. We had someone looked like her. Didn't say much either. Got a unit out when no one else could. That name hung in the room for a second too long. A woman near the coffee machine let her cup hover before setting it down slowly. The man's eyes stayed fixed on Elena, but she didn't look up. She continued wiping the slide, checking the rails, the extractor claw, the recoil groove. Tyler's voice was thinner now. Look, if you're just here to stir up attention, it's working. You want to explain what this is? He gestured broadly like the silence was her fault. Elena folded the cloth in half and placed it on the counter. Her fingers pressed it down gently, lining up the edge. I'm not here to prove anything, she said, her voice soft but firm. That was it. The room didn't have a reply. The confidence in the air had drained. People weren't laughing anymore. They were watching, trying to figure out what they'd missed, trying to understand how they got it so wrong. The bell above the door rang again at 15:04. It didn't clang like before. It chimed clean and sharp, like someone had tuned it. Two men in gray suits stepped inside, their movements quick and clipped, but not rushed. Their shoes didn't squeak. They didn't look around. They went straight to Elena. One held a sealed manila folder. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Emergency recall. Operation Sable 9. He didn't offer a name, didn't ask for one. Elena took the dossier with one hand. Her fingers didn't tremble. The Glock was still open on the counter. No one spoke. Tyler stood behind the register with his mouth half open, the joke he had queued up forgotten. Brad leaned forward, confused. His head tilted like he was trying to recognize a language he hadn't heard in years. The women near the ammo shelf stopped breathing. A barista-looking guy near the door dropped his coffee. No one turned. Elena opened the folder. Her eyes moved over the pages, reading silently. Her thumb flicked past authorization stamps and routing codes. Sable 9 wasn't local. It wasn't a drill. It was a Tier 1 clearance op, last activated during combat withdrawal phases in northern Syria. There were names, there were dates, there was no discussion. She closed the folder, held it under her arm, and looked up. I won't be needing the Glock, she said. I'll be issued gear on base. Her voice was clear, calm, flat. The older man near the bench, the one who'd mentioned Al-Udaid, shifted forward. He stared at her with something between memory and disbelief. Raven, he whispered. You're Raven. Elena didn't nod, didn't deny it either. She met his gaze for a breath, then answered. I used to be. No one moved. The shop seemed smaller now, like the walls had leaned in to listen. Someone near the window murmured a curse under their breath, the reverence slipping out as shock. A kid holding a rifle mag dropped it back into the bin without looking down. Elena turned back to the counter and zipped her bag. The Glock parts were untouched, but she placed the cleaning cloth on top of them like a gesture, not a task. Her hands moved with precision, but not urgency. She wasn't in a rush. She just had somewhere to be. The man in the gray suit gave a short nod. We have 10 minutes. The SUV's waiting. No one asked which agency. No one needed to. The tone, the code, the folder. They spoke louder than uniforms ever could. Brad stepped back. His chest had deflated. His stance was gone. The tactical posturing had drained from his limbs. Tyler looked down and suddenly found nothing to say. His hand gripped the counter, his fingers stiff. Elena looked around the room once, just a glance. Not for recognition, not for pride, just to see who had seen her. Then she walked to the door, the folder tucked under her arm, her steps even and quiet. And just like that, everything they thought they knew about her fell away. All that was left was silence, and the truth they hadn't seen coming. It didn't happen all at once. The day after Elena left, the shop buzzed with quiet conversations and unsure glances. People talked, but no one dared mention her name. They circled it, referred to her as that lady, or what happened yesterday. But the silence around her identity became louder than any rumor. By the weekend, the video surfaced, a grainy recording taken from someone's phone. You could see Brad smirking, hear his voice when he handed her the cig. Then, the shooting, crisp, perfect, undeniable, the grouping, her silence, the way she walked away like it was nothing. The video ended on the stunned look on Brad's face. It went viral overnight. Brad lost his job within 48 hours. His company, a local private security outfit, released a short statement thanking him for his time and citing a values mismatch. No further comment. Brad tried to post a follow-up video explaining his side, but his voice shook the whole time. You could see the panic in his eyes, not from fear of her, but from realizing the world had already decided. The comments were merciless. Hundreds of former service members chimed in. Most didn't know who Elena was, but they knew what they saw. One Marine vet wrote, "She didn't move like a hobbyist. She moved like someone who's had to clear rooms alone." Josh, the guy with the silver watch who joked about her looking homeless, tried to ride the attention. He uploaded a reaction video, voice slick with sarcasm, saying people were blowing it out of proportion. A few hours later, a car dealership he'd partnered with pulled their sponsorship. The post was quietly deleted. A woman in a sundress, the one who'd mocked Elena's shoes, lost her spot on a local charity board. Someone linked her comments from the video to an old community post. Sponsors didn't like the association. She didn't fight it. She just locked down her profiles and vanished from public view. The teenager who'd filmed it all for TikTok took down his entire account. No explanation. One of his friends said he hadn't been back to the range since. None of it came from Elena. She never spoke publicly, never claimed anything. She didn't post a reply or correct the rumors. She didn't need to. It was the silence that did it. Not just hers, but the kind that settled in afterward. People looked at each other differently in that shop now. Less quick to assume, more careful with their words. You could feel it in the way Tyler took his time setting weapons on the counter, in how customers checked their tone before making a joke. Some tried to spin the story. They said it had been a setup, that maybe it was staged. But those were the ones who hadn't been there, the ones who didn't see the way she moved, the ones who didn't hear the dead quiet that followed. There was no official fallout, no lawsuits, no press, just small shifts, doors that quietly closed, reputations that slowly unraveled, names that stopped being mentioned. And underneath all of it, that one target still hung on the wall, untouched, still perfect. No one spoke of Elena out loud, but everyone remembered her, not because she punished anyone, but because she didn't have to. That was the real consequence, not being called out, but being made to remember. And they all did. Every single one. By the third day, Red Rock Tactical had gone quiet. Music still played over the speakers, but no one noticed. The laughter was gone. The banter felt rehearsed, like something they used to know how to do. No one said her name. No one touched the target. It hung on the far wall of the range. Standard silhouette. 5 clean holes. No spread. The paper curled slightly at the top, yellowing at the corners from dry air and fluorescent lights. No one dared replace it. One guy asked if it needed to come down for rotation. Tyler just shook his head. Once. Slow. The footage was missing. The shop's system backed up to a cloud, and the logs showed a full cycle that day. But the 15-hour block was gone, replaced by a string of static and a file labeled NA. No one admitted to deleting it. No one asked twice. It stayed deleted. An old man came in around 10 Suro that Friday. He didn't shoot, just sat near the window for an hour, watching the far wall like it might move. Before leaving, he pulled a folded letter from his coat and handed it to Tyler. Told him it was for the local paper. Said it might clear something up. He didn't leave a name. The letter was handwritten, ink smudged in places. It spoke of a woman who pulled 3 men out of a collapsed building during a sandstorm outside Mosul. No GPS, no comms, just memory and instinct. She didn't wait for medevac. She carried one on her back for 7 miles. The man said he owed her everything. The editor never ran it. People lowered their voices near that wall now. Customers who came in for the first time paused when they saw the paper. They asked what happened. No one answered directly. They said, "You had to be here," or "Just respect it." That was enough. A month later, someone tried to take the target down to frame it. Tyler stopped them. He said it didn't belong behind glass. It needed to stay where it was, where she left it, like it was still waiting for her to return. The Glock she field stripped never sold. It sat in the case untouched. A few customers asked for it by model, but when they saw the serial number, they picked something else, like it carried weight they weren't ready to hold. Elena never came back, but the space she left didn't shrink. It widened. Every small sound in the shop felt louder now. Every movement seemed more deliberate. The regulars stood straighter. The jokes came slower. No one rushed to speak first. And the wall remained, with 5 perfect holes. Her quiet signature, a story no one could tell but everyone understood. Looking back, what stays with me most about Elena isn't what she did. It's what she didn't do. She never raised her voice, never explained herself. She didn't argue or defend or correct the people around her. She let their words fall, let the laughter come and go, and kept moving with the same calm steadiness that defined everything else she touched. She field stripped a Glock faster than anyone in that room had ever seen, and when she did it, she didn't look for reaction. She didn't check the room or wait for a compliment. Her hands just moved the way they were trained to move, like skill lived in her bones. At the range, 5 rounds punched through a single point, one tight group, one clear message, no showmanship, no pause to check for approval. She handled the SIG the same way someone handles a tool they've trusted for years. Nothing flashy, just right. What struck me later wasn't the precision. It was the quiet. Every move she made was efficient. Every step told a story she didn't bother to narrate. That kind of control doesn't come from ego. It comes from discipline, from years of knowing what matters and what doesn't. She never told us who she was. We never saw a badge or patch. All we saw was the result of a life spent doing hard things the right way. She wasn't there to prove anything, and that's exactly why we all remember her. The ones who shouted that day have faded. Their names don't stick, but Elena's silence is still here. In the way we speak a little softer when we're near that target, in how no one jokes about first-timers anymore, in the way Tyler checks the chamber twice now before setting a pistol on the counter. That wasn't policy. That was her. What I learned that day is this: real strength doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't posture or explain. It doesn't rely on titles or uniforms or applause. It just shows up. It handles the task, and it leaves a mark no one can erase. Elena didn't need the last word. She already had it, the moment she walked away. No celebration, no spotlight, just 5 holes in paper and a silence none of us could fill. Some people lead by being loud, others by being first. She led by example, by patience, by never letting the noise matter more than the mission. That's what stayed with me. Not just her skill, but her restraint. In the end, I think that's what power really is. Not the loudest voice or the strongest hand, but the quiet certainty that speaks when everything else falls away. Elena didn't ask us to remember her, and that's exactly why we always will. This part is for you, for anyone who's ever walked into a room and felt the air shift, for the ones who've been laughed at, overlooked, or talked over like they didn't belong. You know the feeling. When they size you up before you say a word, when they decide your story for you. If that's been you, I want you to hear this. You don't have to prove anything to people who never cared to understand you. You don't owe explanations to anyone who mocked your silence, your stillness, or your choice to keep something for yourself. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the way you hold your ground without making a scene. It's the way you keep your dignity when others lose theirs trying to tear you down. Real strength knows what it's capable of. It doesn't need an audience. You've probably been underestimated more times than you can count. Let them. Let them talk. Let them laugh. And then let your actions say what words never could. Because when you do the thing they said you couldn't, the silence that follows will say more than applause ever will. Maybe you've been carrying something for years. A skill, a memory, a discipline you built when no one was watching. Maybe you've had to hold yourself together while others pulled apart what they didn't understand. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you unshakable. There's a quiet kind of power in not needing to be seen, in doing the work anyway, in walking away without bitterness, in knowing that what matters doesn't live in the spotlight. It lives in how you carry yourself when no one is clapping. Elena didn't walk into that shop looking for validation. She didn't ask anyone to believe in her. She just did what she knew how to do. And it changed everything. Not because she shouted, but because she didn't. So, if you're watching this, and you've ever felt small, remember, you are not defined by how others treat you. You're defined by what you know to be true about yourself, by what you've built, by what you've survived, and by how you keep showing up anyway. Hold on to that. Don't trade your stillness for someone else's noise. Don't rush to explain yourself to people who never earned your truth. Let them wonder. Let your story unfold when you decide. On your terms. In your time. And if no one said it yet, I see you. You're not alone. You're part of something quiet and strong and steady. Something that doesn't need a stage to matter. And that's more than enough.